Okay, welcome back everybody to Coffee with FJ. I'm Father John, pastor of Holy Family Church in South Deerfield, Mass, and I'm joined this morning with Margie Cottrill. Margie is a member of our Franklin County Youth Group and recent high school graduate last year, and she's done some mission work over the past year, so I thought it'd be great to have her as a guest today. Before we get into just a little bit about what Margie's been up to, I wanted to say a little bit about what this series or this show is about. So I've been a priest since the year 2008 for the Diocese of Springfield, and I've had several assignments over the course of my almost 12 years as a priest, and one of those assignments was here at UMass, just down the road here at UMass Amherst. And as a college chaplain, we used to take students on retreat every fall and every spring. And on that those retreats, we would do a session called Priest in the Hot Seat, and it gave students an opportunity simply to ask questions. And Margie's very familiar with this, as I do that with our youth group. And it can range from what's your favorite color to what's the meaning of life. My favorite color is green, and the meaning of life is that we are to know, love, and serve God in this life so that we can be happy with Him in the next. And for all you Baltimore Catechism who have memorized that, you're welcome. And that's the point of this show, is to flesh out different things of the areas of the faith that we don't understand. It's a platform to ask questions, to raise concerns, but to do so in a spirit of charity. This is not a platform to have an axe to grind or to attack the church or the faith or me personally. It is to do all things with the utmost charity. So we ask your respect for that. If you're sending in comments or if you're sending in questions, to please be respectful of what we're doing here. So without that further ado, I'd like to introduce Margie. Margie, please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Okay, so like Father said, my name is Margie Cottrill. I'm from Greenfield, Massachusetts, and I got to know Father through our youth group that we did. I was very active in high school. And so what I've been up to is mission work with the Salesians of St. Don Bosco and Francis de Sales in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, California. And so that's been really awesome. Unfortunately, it was cut short because of coronavirus, but it's been such an adventure.
Life has been cut short because of coronavirus. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my work there included a lot of working with kids, primarily in schools and at a youth center that we have. And so I was able to work with pre-K students all the way to high school students, doing lots of different kinds of programs. So I've been doing that for the last 7 months before I came back home. And
what were some of the highlights?
Definitely I worked as a teacher's aide with the pre-K and kindergarten, and that was definitely one of my favorite things because of every day's new adventure. You know, you got to rediscover kind of life through a 4- and 5-year-old, 6-year-old's eyes, and it's just everything is new and fantastic. And it's you also have the privilege of teaching these kids really key lessons, like to say excuse me and push in their chairs and how to hold their pencils, as I got to teach them, which was really awesome.
That's cool.
And so I also was able to work with the middle school at the center in our after-school program, and that was more challenging. Not being from California, and that area was definitely hard to fit in a little bit and get them to, open up. But once I was able to win their trust and get to know them, it was really, really awesome because we just had this great relationship, and they could trust me to help them with whatever they were carrying or wherever they were at. And that was, really awesome. Challenging, but awesome. And I also was able to work with high schoolers doing my own leadership program. Another woman and I, we created it, and so we came up with all the curriculum, and that was awesome because I could choose all my favorite leadership things that I've done in the past and implement them into my own program.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I asked Margie to be on the show today because I thought it would be good to have what is life like as a young Catholic? In today's society, today's world, it isn't easy to be a Catholic as an adult, let alone be a Catholic as a young person. So what is that like for you, Margie? Margie's 18 years old and just getting your footing in the world. So what's that like for you as a young Catholic?
sometimes it can be really challenging because it's just there aren't a whole lot of other teens that are near me that are super passionate about like our faith. And I mean, in our youth group, yes, but other places you're not going to have that as much unless you go to specific communities for that reason. And so it can be really challenging because you just find yourself opposed, your views opposed a lot, or really challenged. I think the first time I had to defend my faith was in the 8th grade.
Wow.
And I had to start asking questions and being like, why do we believe this? How do I explain this to another person who has never heard of anything of that? And so though it is challenging, there's honestly, I get a lot of hope from seeing what's going on in the church. Like Father has come with our youth group to our Steubenville conferences, and that's always super powerful, seeing thousands of teens experiencing Christ in a new way. And even doing mission work, meeting people who are really passionate about helping other people like I am and being the hands and feet of Christ. It can be challenging and scary sometimes, but I think if you really dig deep and reach out to those around you, there is a rich community, and you will have people to support you when it does get tough.
Absolutely. And I have another question for you, Margie. When you started to ask questions, when you're in the 8th grade, and what made it sort of real for you?
Honestly,
what made faith become like, this is a reality, this is real to me?
I guess at first it was hard because I didn't have answers to those questions. And I realized, like, oh, I gotta be ready, like, I better get going, and educate myself, and really, in the catechism, too, ask good questions in catechism class and challenge people. I guess what really made it real was just times in my life where I've been met with a lot of challenges, still being able to find God's presence, maybe in ways I didn't expect, but seeking that out and being open to that, instead of just closing myself off and being like, I have to do it by myself. But and something that we talked about last week on this show was faith as a relationship, and Margie kind of hit the nail on the head, saying that it's asking the questions that we need the answers to, being open to hearing what is being taught or what the church is teaching. You might not agree, you might not get it right away, but I think the humility to be able to receive the answers to our questions is key. But also the experience of finding the presence of God, or being open to having experiences of God in church or out serving the community. In those are two very important pieces of faith as a relationship with Jesus Christ, because as Christians we believe that our God became a human being, and to know Him, to know, love, and serve, as we opened our show with, is to understand that to have a relationship with Him, you're having a relationship with a person. And that person is Jesus Christ. And how do we get to know Him? But we have to read the scriptures, we have to understand the teachings, but also open ourselves up to having those experiences of faith that can come to us very personally, but also within the context of community. Something very uplifting for me is to something Margie just said about going to these Steubenville conferences and seeing 3,000 teenagers that are all there for the same purpose, to deepen their faith and deepen their relationship with God, is very uplifting, because we don't live in isolation. Human beings were not meant to be lone rangers, if you will, or to live on islands by themselves. We were meant to have relationship. And since we were created by God, we're meant to have a relationship with God, who we believe to be Jesus Christ. So I don't know if Margie, you want to comment on that, but just to say that there's two sides of this. There's the I need the information, I need the data is important, but also the experience, the encounters. And those encounters can come within the context of community, of seeing others who have faith. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, and I think what's really great, a part of the church that I really love is the tradition, but also that we're always finding new ways to deepen our relationship with God and serve others. Just we get really creative with that. And how to evangelize, and that's really awesome too, because then it brings especially youth together, because if there's something we can get excited about, we will. And so that's really special, and I think that is something that is special to the church as well. Being able to create communities in new ways.
Right.
Yeah.
I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I was on my bike, just thinking about the gospel coming up this Sunday, Good Shepherd Sunday, and how Jesus uses very specific language, not just this weekend, where he talks about sheep and shepherds and the gate for the sheep, but I started to think about the language he uses is language familiar to his people, and these videos, these online stuff, this overwhelms me. But at the same time, it's language that's familiar to your generation. YouTube and Facebook, and what was the one you mentioned to me the other day?
TikTok.
TikTok. I don't know what these things are, and it frightens me. But at the same time, Instagram's another one, right? That's the language of your generation, and it is important for us not to distort the language of the faith, but to use the language of the culture in order to teach it and to get at the heart, to get at the heart of our young people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think something that I'm also proud of to be, like, for our generation is that, and part of the faith is that we're not satisfied with just pre-packaged answers. Like, we really want to dive deeply, and we want to know why we're doing things, so we can have the conviction and the drive to continue to do them. And so that's really great. It's just that we're not satisfied just hearing the same old. It's like, no, tell us why. Why do we care?
Yeah.
Why are we passionate about this? Why do we have these practices? And then again, once you're able to tell us why, it's like, okay, full steam ahead, like, we'll go.
And I found too that with most young people, in my experience with youth ministry, is that even if there's disagreement, even if there's argument, most teenagers, at least from my experience in our youth group and at the Newman Center, they're still listening.
Mm-hmm.
Might not like the answer, but we're still listening. And I think that's part of this show too, is that you might not like the answer, but don't dismiss it just because you don't like it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, just sit with it a little bit, consider, and keep asking questions, because that's why we're here, and there are definitely answers out there.
What would be your advice, Margie, to someone, and apart from what we've just said, to a young person who's thinking about, I want to try to get to church, or I want to know God more? What would be something that you would say, where's a good place to start?
I would definitely say try and start asking questions, even if they're really basic ones. What is this? What does this mean? Either research online, or really try and get in contact with people who know, with your priest or different people at your church. And then if you're, like, I always went to church with my family, but if you don't have someone bringing you to church, ask someone to take you. It might not be comfortable at first. It might be asking someone, maybe one of your friends' families, to take you, and you're not sure.
And that can be a little daunting too, just to put yourself out there and say, hey, would you take me to church? Although we can't really go to church right now, but you can certainly watch it online.
Yeah.
And if that's something too, in this sort of global pandemic, no one's gonna know if you're looking up church online right now. But that doesn't take the place of the communal worship. But nevertheless, it can be very easy right now, and to remain anonymous, to start asking those questions. No one has to know who you are to get the answers that you're looking for. And I can honestly say in my own personal life that I've never been disappointed by the church, by God. And I sometimes might not like the answer. There's still even things that I don't like or agree with, but nevertheless, I'm never disappointed.
Yeah, I think when you're really open to new experiences or trying to get out of your comfort zone, as long as you're trying and really being open, it will come in time.
It'll change your life.
It really will. Honestly, it has for me, and that's something that's played a lot into my mission work as well, getting out of my comfort zone and just, like, finding things out and skills that I didn't even know I had, and I was like, okay, but I would have never known if I hadn't gotten out of my comfort zone and out of my environment.
Right, exactly.
So,
yeah,
honestly,
it can be easy to stay isolated, but that's not what our faith is about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put Margie on the spot just real quick because I love to do this to her. So Margie, we're on a show that's called Coffee with FJ. Okay. And the point of the show is to ask questions so we can flesh out some answers about what it means to have faith and those types of things. What do you got?
Okay, so talking about community, getting out of our comfort zones, But I just want to know what you think about if you're already in certain communities, in friendships, and maybe they're not the best friendships, how to get out of them, what to look for in good friends, and do your friends always have to have the same faith as you? Or
good question. Those are really good questions. So I actually have been thinking about this topic for quite a while. So I'm going to flush out more of that in greater detail in another episode. But I'll give you, with just a few minutes remaining here, a brief kind of overview. So Aristotle lays out, and I forget exactly where, there's 3 levels of friendship. Friendship of utility, of pleasure, and friendships of the good, virtuous friendships. And what he means by that is you have friendships of utility that are convenient because you work together, or you're in the same class, or on the same soccer team, or whatever, or in the band together, or whatever. And because because you have to be together at these different things, it's easy to strike up the conversation over the work that you're doing, or the sport that you play, or the instrument that you play. It's easy, but it's convenient, right? Because you have to do the same thing, or you have to be there. The second one is friendships of pleasure. So you don't always have to be doing the same thing, but these things make you laugh, they make you happy. Playing an instrument, or a sport, or video games, or whatever. And so, but once those interests and those things you lose interest in, you can easily lose interest in that friend. You stop playing video games. Well, I always played video games with Margie, but I don't play them anymore, so I don't really see her anymore. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But then there's virtuous friendships that are friendships of the good. And those types of friendships really have the best interest of your friend at heart at all times, and vice versa. So it's laying down your own ego, your own interests, your own desires to say, what is the best thing for my friend right now? That sometimes means saying hard things, like, hey, you're on a destructive path. I'm not saying this because I want to see you die. I'm saying this because I love you and I want you to be healthy, right? It's sharing their joys and sharing your joys. It's a friendship that is based on what is right, true, and good at all times. And ultimately, the ultimate good is God. So that friendship has the good at the heart of it. Meaning, you're seeking each other's good for their benefit and not your own, right? And who is the ultimate good but God? And what does it mean to really love? Love means to confer goodness on others. So those types of friendships are friendships based on love, on virtue, and of the good. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes that means, I've said this already, you have to say hard things. It means sharing joys. It means sharing sorrows. But you walk with another person thinking less of yourself and more of them. It gives deference to the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? There was something else that I
And so do those people always have to be of the same faith as you? Or?
Right. No, they don't always have to be of the same faith. If they are, then fantastic, because that could take your faith to a whole nother level. But maybe those friends, they may not be Catholic, or they might not even believe in God, but that doesn't mean that they can't seek the good for you. That doesn't mean they can't step out of themselves and lift you up, and you vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it might be for you an opportunity to evangelize, an opportunity to be a witness.
Yeah.
However, if said person, whether that person is of the same faith or not, is a destructive friendship that causes sorrow all the time, that leads you down a destructive path all the time, that where they're only interested in their self-interest and not your own, then you might think to yourself, this might not be good for me. This friendship is not good for me. One example I could give is silly, but let's say this person asks you every time you go over to their house or whatever, would you bring me some milk? Would you go do this for me? Would you go to that on your way here? But then when you ask that person, well, when you're on your way here, could you grab this for me? I can't do that. I'm too busy. I can't. If that person's not willing to go out on a limb for you, then maybe you shouldn't go out on a limb for them. But again, that's gray area. That's situational.
Right.
You have to read what's really happening. And if it's really bad, then you might want to sit down with mom or dad, or with priest friend, or a trusted friend, confidant, to say, hey, look, I'm concerned about so-and-so. I'm thinking that this might not be the best friendship for me. What do you think?
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's situational. There's a lot of gray that can happen. Gray areas is not always going to be cut and dry, black and white. But that takes discernment. And maybe discernment could be another topic for a show.
Should, yeah.
But to be able to even take that to your own prayer. What do I do here, Lord? And again, to be willing to listen and to hear how God directs our actions and our thoughts and our feelings. And you'll make the right decision if you think and pray well through those types of situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, running out of time, trying to keep this at about 20 minutes, and we're running a little over. So, Margie, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have her back. She was great. So, as always, I wish you all God's blessings on you and your life. And please, if you have questions, please send them to our Holy Family, to Facebook page, or please send them, email them to our secretary, and if you want to remain anonymous, and she will pass them on to me. And please ask questions and be open to hearing what the Lord wants to say to you to help you to know, love, and serve Him. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thanks, Margie.
Thank you.